Subs again in the resub wet nap.
Hello, you absolute legends. Well, they are back at it again. The biggest conmen in video game, more lawsuits in retaliation for their fake scores being removed. By now, you're almost certainly all familiar with Billy Mitchell and star of King of Kong, who was exposed as cheating in many
Alright, I don't know how to fix it. If I missed any subs, I'm sorry.
lawsuit will blow your mind with its stupidity, and we will take a look at it later in the video. The list of victims that have been attacked by Mitchell through the legal system continues to grow, and he is utterly out of control. Considering the damage
Billy Mitchell
caused
streams
so
on
far,
Twitch.
I actually think I've been
I went into his stream
trained in
once.
my coverage, but now things are
He
getting a
banned
bit
pretty
too
much everyone I saw
ridiculous.
in there.
The man is trying to ruin lives.
That was a
and
couple
I'm now
years
of
ago.
the opinion he is legitimately evil, and hopefully something can be done to stop him
Thanks
soon.
to resub not famous.
But perhaps one of the more
Can't
shocking
click links, corn
developments
dog.
is a new lawsuit
Thanks
from
to
none
Tier 1
other
Laser.
than Todd Rogers. In 2019, I released a video called The Longest Con in Video Game History, which outlined the story behind his dragster world record.
Yeah,
In
that was a
nutshell,
pretty good one.
Rogers claims to have the longest world record in video game history, which later turned out to be completely impossible. But dragster
Twitch
wasn't his
dashboard
only
shows?
impossible claim. Rogers submitted thousands of scores to Twin Galaxies, with absolutely zero evidence to support any of them. Over the years, many of his scores were proven to be physically impossible. Alongside
you're right,
Mitchell,
it did work.
Rogers was also banned from Twin
Thanks to resub
Galaxies
47
after an
Ronan.
extensive investigation into his scores. While he always denied he was lying about his accomplishments, Rogers never appeared to be as villainous as Mitchell, as he seemed to just slip away into the darkness, never to be seen again.
Until
But he has
now,
come roaring back.
he fucked
and
Billy
wants to
Mitchell's
prove to the
girl.
world that he is just as big a scumbag as Mitchell.
Oh.
He has now filed a $500,000 defamation lawsuit against Twin Galaxies, Guinness World Records, and Jace Hall, the current owner of Twin Galaxies.
Oof.
I am honestly clueless as to what he expects to happen here. Rogers' claimed scores have been thoroughly proven to be impossible
I don't
by
know about
many
that, corn
independent
dog.
experts. It's plainly obvious that this lawsuit will go nowhere, and I don't think he quite understands what the repercussions are.
Ron
when he
Jeremy knows what he's
ultimately
talking
loses.
about.
In any
Look
case,
at him, he's
this
fucking
lawsuit
playing
is arguably
dragster.
more insane than Mitchell's, and in this video we are going
Guy's
to
a
learn
guru.
why. So please, buckle up, because the deeper this rabbit hole goes, the weirder it gets. I hope you enjoy.
Thanks to the
Now,
resubs
legends,
Smanson
if you
and
want to
Kimchi.
become legitimately good at something, unlike the subjects of this video, you need a great teacher. And that is where this video's sponsor, Skillshare. It was Todd Rogers
Sorry, Carl.
is the antithesis
Skillshare
of
is
Billy
good, though.
Mitchell. While being a part of the same clique, he never
Thanks
achieved
to the
the same
resub
kind of
Body
fame that the
Basper.
star of the King of Kong experienced. Rogers is a far less marketable figure, and though he did appear in the documentary
How is
Chasing
he not
Ghosts,
marketable?
it was
Look
more
at
or less
him.
to demonstrate how much of a shambles
He could
his
literally
life has
cosplay
become
as Ron
since his glory
Jeremy
days
by
of gaming
accident.
back in the 80s. Compare that to Mitchell's appearance in the same documentary, where he attempts to flaunt his apparent rock star lifestyle. Todd does not exude success.
Yes,
But
he
in the
does! Look
relatively
at
niche
him!
world of retro video game high scores, he was a celebrity, and would often be seen tagging along with Mitchell to various video game exhibitions. Apparently, event
God, he looks so
organizers even
sad.
paid to various
Why the fuck is he so sad? He kind of looks a little bit like Super Mario. If he was a lot more sad.
video game exhibitions. Apparently, event organizers even paid him to show up.
Old
I
news,
doubt the
this released
compensation
12
was
hours
substantial,
ago.
But who could complain about getting paid to attend a video game convention? Rogers was most known for his dragster world record, and I'm sure you've all heard the story by now. His claimed score of 5.51 seconds was proven to be physically impossible. There is literally no way a score that fast could ever be attained. It's simply prevented by the game's code. This was demonstrably shown by multiple independent parties, and there is just no doubt to their conclusions. Once the first domino fell, it was game over for Rogers, as more and more of his scores were shown to be absolutely impossible to achieve. On the 29th of January
Amateur.
2018, Rogers was officially
Thanks to the
banned
anonymous
from
5
Twin
gift subs.
Galaxies, and the decision summary
Oh, never mind, I
outlines
see it.
two
Thanks
main
to the 5 gift
concerns
subs,
that
D-Ball.
led to that decision.
Why
The
did it say
first
anonymous?
was the agreement of results from numerous parties confirming that 5.51 seconds is not an achievable score.
The resub
The
big
second
spit.
was referee testimony that seemed to confirm that Rogers had a history of entering many of his own scores. Guinness would follow up this decision by also stripping Rogers of his award for the longest standing video game record, and posting a small blurb in their Next Gamers edition, which said that Twin Galaxies confirmed the time was not technically possible. Fast forward to 2021, and Todd Rogers has lawyered up and filed a $500,000 defamation lawsuit against Spectrum Business Ventures, who were the previous owners of Twin Galaxies, Guinness World Records, and Jace Hall, who is the current custodian of Twin Galaxies.
Thanks for some Connor, August, and
Wait a minute,
Lich.
Todd Todges?
Appreciate it.
You can't be serious. Did he really misspell his own name?
Yes.
You might think this is fake, but I've pulled this document directly from the Florida courts. Todd really did misspell his own name in the lawsuit filing. Definitely not off to a great start. The case laid out in this filing is very poorly written, and lacks the fundamental basics required for a
Don't you have to have an
successful
actual
claim.
lawyer to write
For
this?
example, the first
How
most
could they fuck
obvious
that up?
inclusion to this kind of legal action would be the specific
Unless he's
defamatory
representing
statements
himself.
themselves. However, this filing doesn't include any. It does state that Todges has suffered significant loss of reputation due to statements on social media by SBV, but no examples are provided, likely because they don't actually exist. It states that Twin
People
Galaxies
in Florida
posted
can
an
spell their
article
own name.
entitled Twin Galaxies Drags to Dispute concludes with the banning of Todd Rogers, but again, it fails to disclose what the defamatory statements were. I can only conclude that this is because the article did not include
Is
any
it tier 1
defamatory
annoyed
statements.
Otis
If
in the
you read
resub
the article
email
yourself, you'd be inclined
some
to
major
agree. Out of the 3
and Connor.
defendants, Guinness is the only one that sees one of their statements included. Todges provides a snippet from the Gamers Edition where they explain that
Resub
Twin
duels.
Galaxies informed them that 5.51 wasn't technically possible, so they removed his award. An important thing to remember about defamation suits is that truth is an absolute defense, meaning that if the statement is factually accurate, there is simply no case against it. Everything in this paragraph is verifiably true. Twin Galaxies did notify Guinness that 5.51 wasn't technically
Todd Rogers
possible.
is so
There is
talented he
nothing
breaks
here that is
space and
even
time.
remotely false. Given the
Checkmate.
fact that Guinness only repeated what
Wow.
Twin Galaxies told them, I really don't see a case here. I'm guessing this is just another attempt at strong-arming them into giving him back his record, which is exactly what happened when Billy Mitchell threatened to sue them back in 2019. Suing Twin Galaxies is especially egregious,
Man,
though,
Lil Lock,
when you
Give Me the
realize
Smoke,
just how
No
far
Life
they
Billy,
went
and
in order
Shazy
to
Bait.
help Todges clear his name. The initial spark that led to the entire investigation of Todd's dragster record was the findings of
Resub, Don't
OmniGamer,
Leave
who
Me.
disassembled the code and calculated the best possible time as 5.57.
What
He
a
also
hero.
created a spreadsheet which
Makes
mimics the
Resub
game
Noxus.
perfectly, so you could just manually place inputs at which frames you like, and it would immediately tell you the result of the race. Over the next 6 months,
All that for a
multiple
fucking
independent
Atari
parties would
game.
also do their own analysis of the game's code and confirm that 5.51 wasn't possible. They also rigorously compared OmniGamer's spreadsheet against actual hardware and found that it was a perfect match. Essentially, all technical analysis of this problem resulted in the same outcome. Todd's score is
'Cause he's a
just
god.
not
He's a
achievable.
gaming god.
However, Twin Galaxies didn't
Makes it
want
tier
to just
1,
take the
Joey
word
boy.
of relatively unknown figures on the internet. They wanted to hire an expert to validate the findings.
tier 1 Eagle
so
Titty.
they paid for the help of Ben Heck, a well-known console modder
I can't
and
click links for
computer
me. I'm
engineer.
sorry.
Ben
But thank you
made
for
a couple
15.
of
Just tell me what
videos
it's
covering
called.
the investigation, and openly stated that he was asked to do so by Twin Galaxies. Not only this, but Twin Galaxies flew Todges first class to appear with Ben Heck and allow himself to prove his innocence. In total,
And he
they
did.
spent $10,000 on this. And again, this was purely to try to help Todges clear his name, as extensive testing had all but confirmed that his record was not possible. Ben Heck's testing showed that OmniGamer's spreadsheet was accurate, and Todd failed miserably in showing that better than 5.51 was achievable. In fact, even though he could manually enter any input he wanted, he couldn't even get close.
Yeah, but you can't
It was
trust
clear
that.
His
It's
understanding
Todd.
of the game fell well
He
short of the
transcends
experts
math
who
and
had already
science.
chimed in with their conclusions. So it's pretty incredible that after spending 6 months investigating and thousands of dollars on expert analysis, Twin Galaxies is now being sued
Is he
by
crying
the
or
very
laughing?
person they were trying to help. Todges claims that Twin Galaxies posted their article in order to bring traffic to the website, and that they made
Thanks
over
to the resub
$1 million
Aquatic and the
from
5
it.
gift subs,
Man,
Baka.
if exposing a has-been
Baka.
gamer that literally no one outside of the retro video game high school community has ever heard of can earn you $1 million, where do I sign up? This claim is obviously ridiculous, and just goes to show how big of an ego he has that he thinks he is this important. The reality is that Twin Galaxies doesn't earn money from its website. It doesn't even run
Hey,
ads.
DB Cooper.
In fact, it doesn't really earn money at all. The simple truth is that the owner
Thanks
of
for
Twin
Prime Shadow.
Galaxies, Jace Hall, just wanted to know if the scores were possible, and when the evidence said they weren't, he banned the player. There really isn't much more to it than that. I previously said that Billy Mitchell's lawsuit against Twin Galaxies was the dumbest in video game history, but Todd's might be just a bit dumber. Unlike Mitchell,
Well, he
Todd
did
has
misspell his own
literally
name.
no videos of any of his high scores, nor were any of them ever
look at him
publicly
sweat.
achieved. He claims he has witnesses, but none of them ever step forward because they are imaginary. The moment this is seen
Appreciate
by a
that. Well, thank
judge,
you,
Todd
Rigaroon.
will be destroyed, and I am very much looking
And
forward to
whatever
it.
you prefer, to be honest. Thank you for the generosity. Hope you have a great night.
Now on to everyone's favorite villain, Billy Mitchell, who has filed a new lawsuit against the world's best Pac-Man player David Race. Race holds the record for the fastest ever perfect completion of Pac-Man, attaining the maximum score possible in 3 hours, 28 minutes, and 49 seconds. When the Donkey Kong scandal first began taking shape, Race was an avid Mitchell supporter, and
Yeah, they
often
should just
write
have it
lengthy
duked
Facebook
out like a
posts
boxing
defending
match.
him. Mitchell took notice of this and got in touch with Race, allowing him to be part of Billy's team that was trying to disprove
I
the
agree,
cheating
lolly ass.
allegations. Race would ultimately spend months
Thanks,
testing
Resub
the
Crow.
exact hardware Mitchell supposedly used to create his scores. Mitchell even provided the exact arcade board that he claimed to have used. It was originally David's intent to prove Mitchell's innocence, but alas, the more he investigated, the more he realized that Mitchell's story couldn't be true.
Oh,
There is just
no.
no way the footage of the scores could ever be replicated on original arcade hardware. Despite the tests concluding that Mitchell's tapes were not from a Donkey Kong arcade, David still felt that there were other
Thanks,
possible
Resub Planet.
explanations for the discrepancy, such as video editing or tampering with the tapes. Perhaps someone who wanted to frame Mitchell devised a genius scheme. However, this theory was also debunked when an MTV video from 2006 showed Mitchell's score before anyone else had access to it, which also showed all of the hallmarks of emulation. In the end, David couldn't help but agree with the assertions that had already been made.
Oh, David!
Mitchell's performances were not
You were supposed to
produced
help
from an
him.
original arcade, and there is just
Snake?
no way the tapes that Twin Galaxies possess were tampered with. But this didn't stop Mitchell from taking some of David's earlier comments and using them out of context to try to support his own claims. Mitchell's evidence package asserts that Race believes the technical analysis was inconclusive, but his current opinion couldn't be further from this, now that all of the facts have been presented. After David's comments were misconstrued by Mitchell in the Twin Galaxies lawsuit,
I've heard
David
about that
began
one,
providing testimony
stupid
in
gamer.
defense of Twin Galaxies.
I think I'm just
in
done
his
with that
sworn
stuff, though.
testimony, he states clearly, "It is my
Thanks for
opinion
Prime
that the
NG
video
and the
game
resub
recordings
cash.
of the disputed score performances cannot have come from an original, unmodified Donkey Kong PCB." This began a tangential war between Mitchell and Race. In
I feel
the
like
lawsuit,
Billy Mitchell
with
would have that
claiming
psychopath
Race gave
energy in a
fraudulent
fight.
declaration
Be like
in an
ripping
effort
at his
to
fucking
seek
nipples or
revenge.
something.
As is always
Playing
the
dirty.
case, Mitchell paints anyone who thinks he cheated as just having a vendetta against him. It can never simply be that they examined evidence and came to the only reasonable conclusion. This epic side battle is far too involved for me to break down in complete detail, but the crux of the matter is that David ended up releasing a
Sorry to hear
recording
that,
of a
TC.
phone conversation between him and Mitchell. In this conversation, Mitchell explains to Race a scheme to create a new videotape and
Jesus.
claim it as the
Yeah, I
recording
thought I
of
replied to
one
your
of his
email.
disputed scores. More
Yeah, I
specifically,
said I'm
the
good,
score
I'm
of
in,
1,062,800,
I'll
which
resend
to
it.
date does not have a
Thank you,
full
a huge
public
100.
video. This conversation was entered into evidence to both show the deceiving nature of Mitchell and to illustrate how close the two men were. It is this exact recording that has landed David on the receiving end of a $100,000 lawsuit. Mitchell is claiming that it was illegal for David to record the conversation, but unfortunately for him, David resides in Ohio, which is where the call was recorded. Ohio is a one-party state, meaning that it is perfectly legal to record a conversation
what?
if you are one of the
Oh.
parties involved.
Ohio's wiretapping law? Does every state have a wiretapping law? What? Huh, I wonder what Florida's wiretapping law is. I want to look that up real quick. Let's see. Florida has what is known as a two-party consent law. Florida, of all places, has a two-party consent law for recording phone calls? Are you serious? This would be the last fucking state I would think would have that. You don't even need two people to consent for, like, fucking dealing drugs or becoming addicted to shit. Like pharmaceuticals. Like, I can't believe this. Wow. Hey, Florida's on the come up, baby. Thanks to the resub, Grandma. And the bits feedback. And the resub, PJ Salt.
Involved. Mitchell claims that because he called David from Florida, which is a two-party state, David should be subject to Florida law, which just isn't how it works. Mitchell's filing even admits David was in Ohio at the time. Aside from the ridiculousness of the main claim, the filing contains insane lies that are plucked out of thin air. For example, it claims that after first meeting Mitchell in 2010, David Race then joined the Pac-Man community to pursue his own high scores in the footsteps of Mitchell. But David was already the best Pac-Man player in the world by the time they met. In 2009, he already held the record for the fastest ever perfect completion. Wow. Trust me, I've studied all of Mitchell's lawsuits. There are so many crazy lies, it really boggles the mind. He has absolutely no inhibitions about constructing fake stories that are incredibly easy to disprove.
Has Carl been sued by Billy yet?
I am of the opinion that this new lawsuit is just another attack on someone that Mitchell wants to hurt for speaking out against him. Now, let's do a quick rundown of all of the current legal action Mitchell is taking. He is suing Twin Galaxies in California for $1 million for removing his high scores and saying they weren't achieved on original hardware. He also filed a $10 million lawsuit against them in Florida. He is suing Jeremy Young for $1 million, who was the person who originally declared that Mitchell's tapes were performed on emulator. He filed a $2 million lawsuit against Jeff Harris, who owns and runs Donkey Kong Forum. This is the official Donkey Kong High School leaderboard that all of the top players use. They are being sued for removing his scores and allowing posts outlining the evidence that Mitchell cheated. He also sued YouTuber Apollo Legend for $1 million. I haven't spoken about this publicly, but this lawsuit ultimately ended with Apollo giving in and settling with Mitchell. He was forced to remove all of his videos about Mitchell's cheating and paid him a large sum of money. This left him deeply in debt, which required him to find extra work. But with his ongoing health issues, this was all too much of a burden, and he ultimately took his own life. Not that Billy Mitchell would ever care though. In fact, when Billy Mitchell thought Apollo died earlier, he expressed joy at the thought. The lawsuit against Apollo was just as frivolous. I didn't get a chance to finish reading that. In fact, when Billy Mitchell...
Wow. Jesus Christ, Billy. The fucking supervillain of retro Donkey Kong gaming. It has to be a really sad existence. This man did one thing in his life, and he will never let you forget it, even though no one cares. He has built his entire persona in life around the idea that he is the best Donkey Kong player. That's worse than those people that peaked in high school because they played quarterback.
Mitchell thought Apollo died earlier, he expressed joy at the thought. The lawsuit against Apollo was just as frivolous as the rest, and Apollo definitely would have won in court, but again, he was extremely ill and couldn't handle the ongoing stress. Mitchell threatened to sue Guinness World Records, causing them to cave in and reinstate his fake scores. He also hired a lawyer in Australia and threatened to sue me,
I remember most of them actually
for $150,000. In all likelihood, if he is not stopped, he probably will sue me eventually. And now, of course, he is suing David Race for exposing him and helping Twin Galaxies with their lawsuit. It's really important to remember that Mitchell has never had a lawsuit actually go the distance and result in his favor. In the past, people would get too scared and comply, until he went up against the new owner of Twin Galaxies, Jace Hall, who is anything but a pushover. The only lawsuit that actually ended in a judgment was Mitchell's lawsuit against Cartoon Network, which he hilariously lost. And trust me, he is going to lose every single lawsuit from here on out.
Wait, he actually sued them for that?
Pushed around, and they are beginning to fight back. Unfortunately,
I'm not going to go back. I was going to go back,
money,
but
which is why I have launched a GoFundMe to support victims of Billy Mitchell's frivolous lawsuits. Money is really important for two main reasons. The first is that we can provide good quality lawyers to ensure that the lawsuits are defended successfully in a swift manner. Secondly, lawsuits are extremely stressful, and any support would go a long way to help the victims deal with these attacks in good spirits. The priority at the moment will be to help David Race, Jeremy Young, and Jeff Harris. Any surplus funds will be used to aid Twin Galaxies in their defense, or to help myself if Mitchell takes action against me. I really also want to give back to supporters, so backers will gain access to regular video updates that I will provide, going far more in depth into the status of all of these lawsuits. If you have any other suggestions about ways I can add value, or ways you think we can help, please let me know. All of Billy Mitchell's victims are just huge fans of competitive gaming. They have devoted their lives to it, and are just doing their best to ensure that fraudsters like Mitchell are removed from the community. They don't deserve this at all. And although it might take a little bit of time, patience, and money, Billy Mitchell will be stopped, and he will be forced to face the consequences of his actions. Remember, when he does ultimately lose, he will need to pay back every single penny that was spent defending against his frivolous lawsuit. I really do appreciate all of the help. As always, thank you so much for watching, you legends. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.
Yeah, you want to know the craziest thing? Billy Mitchell has fans. Yeah, it's fucking mind-boggling. Like I said, he was streaming on Twitch and I checked in like 2 years ago. When they weren't just deleting every comment ever, there was a few people genuinely supporting him. Can you believe that? He's an extremely unlikable asshole. Thanks to the gift sub No Cita and the resub Juniper. And the resub Luca. Yeah, Billy's been kind of a joke on the internet for a long time. He's gonna sue you? Because I called him an asshole? What was it? Isn't like the absolute truth an indefensible position? I mean, you are an asshole. Like, quite literally. Objectively. It's a true statement. That wouldn't be defamatory. It's a straight up substantial truth. He's sued for less. I actually want to look up a history of his lawsuits. Thanks to the tier 1 Zonich and the